The pre-dawn hours of Sunday, December 7th, 1941, were dark and quiet. At 3:30 a.m., Japanese submarines lurking near the entrance to Oahu's Pearl Harbor released 5 midget submarines. Their orders? To penetrate the harbor and assist in the upcoming attack. On patrol near the entrance to the harbor, alert crew members on a small minesweeper, the USS Condor, spotted a periscope. Knowing that U.S. submarines were forbidden to enter these waters, they sent out an alarm. Others joined in the search, but no submarine could be found. 230 miles north of Oahu, the 6 aircraft carriers in the Japanese Carrier Strike Force turned into the wind and began launching their first wave of attack planes. This wave of 183 planes included 40 torpedo bombers, 49 high-altitude bombers, 51 dive bombers, and 43 fighter planes. Once airborne, Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, leader of the attack force, organized the planes into formation for the 90-minute flight to Oahu. The objective of this first wave was to destroy the firepower of the American Pacific Fleet. The battleships anchored south of Ford Island along Battleship Row. At the same time, this attack was also to hit all air bases on Oahu in order to maintain air superiority over the island. By eliminating the U.S. Air Forces, the Japanese attack planes would be protected and retaliatory strikes against the Carrier Strike Force would be prevented. The American aircraft carrier USS Enterprise, 200 miles west of Oahu, was returning to Pearl Harbor from a supply mission to Wake Island. As part of its normal operating procedures, it launched 18 planes to scout the route ahead into the harbor. At the entrance to Pearl Harbor, an unidentified submarine was again encountered. The destroyer USS Ward fired on and sank the sub. This sinking was the first action that took place that day in the defense of Pearl Harbor. In 1941, radar was an emerging technology and was in the process of becoming a component of the military's early warning system. The U.S. Army maintained 5 mobile radar stations on Oahu, including the Opana radar station, located on the northern tip of the island. At 7:02 a.m., Opana picked up a strong signal that was interpreted as a large flight of incoming planes at a distance of 137 miles north of Oahu. A message quickly phoned into the information center received little attention. The newly assigned officer in the information center knew that a flight of American B-17 bombers was expected to arrive from Northern California early that morning, and that the Enterprise may have scout planes in the air. Sensing the radar was detecting friendly planes, no action was taken by the officer. The second wave of 167 attack planes launched from the Carrier Strike Force. The air was filled with 78 dive bombers, 54 high-altitude bombers, and 35 fighters. 350 Japanese planes were now in the air, headed toward the island of Oahu. Commander Fuchida, in the lead plane of the attack force, could now see the northern shores of Oahu. As he started the formation down the western coast of the island, there was absolutely no opposition, and he deployed the first wave of attack planes. The dive bombers and fighters, called Zeros by the Allies, separated from the formation and flew down the central portion of Oahu, through the broad saddle between the Waianae Range and the Ka'olau Range. Their mission was to destroy seaplanes and fighter planes at Wheeler and Hickam Fields, Ford Island, and Kaneohe Naval Air Station, and Ewa Marine Air Station. The torpedo bombers and the high-altitude bombers continued down the western side of Oahu to attack battleships and cruisers within Pearl Harbor. The first bombs of the attack actually fell on Wheeler Field and Kaneohe Naval Air Station. Dive bombers hit the hangars, and Zero fighters strafed American planes on the runways. This job was made easier for the Zeros because, in response to concerns about sabotage, the Army and Navy had lined its planes up, wingtip to wingtip, in neat rows. Planes parked in tight formations were considered easier to guard. The Zeros simply fired incendiary bullets into the rows of planes, setting them on fire. After striking Wheeler Field, Japanese attack planes also hit targets of opportunity at the Army's nearby Schofield Barracks. From his position with the high-altitude bombers, Fuchida could see that their attack on Pearl Harbor was going to be successful. He radioed back to the Japanese carrier strike force the code words for achieving a complete surprise: Tora, Tora, Tora. Many civilians, soldiers, and sailors saw or heard planes approaching Pearl Harbor that morning and paid them no attention. As part of an effort to make the Pacific Fleet battle-ready, mock air raids had been conducted frequently. So, when at 7:55 a.m. a dive bomber swooped down on the Naval Air Station at Ford Island and dropped the first bomb of the Pearl Harbor attack, most observers thought it was just another drill. Even as more explosions rocked the harbor, those not directly involved simply commented, "The Army must be using live ammunition." Those involved in the action, however, were quick to see the red ball, the rising sun insignia of Imperial Japan on the planes, and knew they were under attack. An uncoded radio message was immediately transmitted. "Air raid Pearl Harbor. This is not drill." The attack was sudden and terrifying. Continued strikes by dive bombers and fighter planes succeeded in destroying Ford Island's 26 seaplanes, the eyes and ears of the Pacific Fleet. Simultaneously with these strikes, low-flying torpedo bombers entered Pearl Harbor from the north and south. The USS Oklahoma took 6 hits and capsized. The USS West Virginia, struck by at least 5 torpedoes, was sunk. This photo, taken by the Japanese, shows huge oil plumes coming from these 2 torpedoed battleships. The USS Utah on the northern side of Ford Island took 3 hits and capsized, while the USS California was sunk by 2 torpedoes. To illustrate the power of these 1,700-pound torpedoes, 2 ships were docked side by side during the strike: the light cruiser USS Helena and a smaller mine layer, the USS Oglala. A torpedo passed under the smaller Oglala and struck the Helena. Even though the smaller ship was untouched, the pressure wave generated from the torpedo explosion was so great that it ruptured the Oglala's hull and sank it.